Darkcity Radio Live. This is your host Dawn from the Darkcity crew. Tune in at www.darkcityradio.com. You can find us by searching Darkcity Radio on Facebook or Twitter. You're listening to Darkcity Radio Live. To Darkcity Radio Live.
Once again, welcome to Darkcity Radio. It's not me tonight. I know. You were all tuning in. I saw all the numbers go up as Dom and them lot got off, and you all come pouring in for the Darkcity. But we've got something better for you. We really have. You remember the member of our Darkcity crew? Dawn, the Catwoman. Dawn of the Darkcity on show. It launches tonight with Permaculture. So, anyway, that what you just heard was Vosto and Dawn. New jingle, like it, absolutely brilliant. Without a further ado, I'll hand it over to the Darkcity lady herself. Dawn, Darkcity.
Welcome to Dawn's Sunday night diorama. So that's what I'm going to call my show for the moment anyway. It's Sunday the 3rd of March, and basically this show's going to be every Sunday at 9 till 10 p.m. GMT. And that's 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. EDT Oz, I think, and 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. EST. This week's special guest will be Nyrees Titchener. Nyrees, as you're aware, is a permaculture activist. Nyrees runs the Sandwell and Birmingham Permaculture group, and we'll put all the websites related to tonight's show on the YouTube video tomorrow for the show. Nyrees has kindly provided me with lots of different links, so there'll be lots of interesting things for you to check out if you want to learn even more than what you do learn on the show. So welcome to the show, Nyrees, and thank you for coming on to talk about permaculture, which really is something that we all should have at least some basic knowledge in.
Hello.
Hello. Because obviously we're all working, it's good to work towards a self-sustaining future in this day and age, if we want to be less reliant on the corporate debt system which enslaves us. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, and can you explain to us what permaculture and urban permaculture are exactly?
Yeah, well, I got into permaculture probably about 12 years ago, and that was through Druidry. I was a member of the Order of Bards, Oviates and Druids at that time, and there's quite a few links with the ethics of Druidry and permaculture, so that was how I got into it. Practiced it on a personal level in the garden at the allotment since then, and then it was about a year ago, really, through talking to a few people, realised that, you know, instead of waiting for 4 acres of Welsh woodland to fall into my lap, I should just be getting on with it. So that's what I did. Yeah, and then so I started the group from there, really. We've got a little patch on a community allotment. That's where we have our meetings as well. And then I've just been going round and trying to get as many people to grow on any spare green space, because, as you say, I just think I can't stress how important it is for people to be growing their own food and being in control of where their own food comes from, really.
So what really got you involved with this initially? What was the catalyst?
Well, it was that, I mean, I've always been into gardening. Ever since I was a little girl, I've always loved nature, which I suppose is how I got into sort of paganism, which was at the beginning of my early 20s, and then sort of Druidry. And then it was through that, really, because there's similarities there between permaculture and Druidry of obviously nature and the cycles of nature, and also observation, which are big things in Druidry and permaculture. So that was what started it all, really.
So, this is just a random question I was going to ask, because you keep mentioning Druidry. Could you tell us a little bit about the Druidry, please?
Well, yes. I mean, I think I should point out that, there is a wide spectrum of people involved in permaculture, and this is just my angle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just, like we all did, go through looking at religion and what's behind that religion, and saw the whole thing with Christianity and where it all was coming from, and a lot of control in there and a lot of misinformation, and that kind of led me to the Druidry, really, which again is quite a broad thing, really, because it draws on teachings from all over the world, a bit like permaculture, I suppose. Yeah, they're very similar.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not massive in the Druidry world these days. I got a bit worried. I was raising all this energy, and then I got a bit worried about where I was sending it, and then I had to go away and have a little personal think about where my energy was going when it goes into the ether. So that's a whole different conversation.
It's for a whole other topic, basically. Yeah. Another show. So, your group participates in activism, and I believe you were telling me something about your relations with the council or something to do with the activism. Could you talk a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's classed as activism specifically. I mean, mainly the group really is just for anyone to come whenever they can, and whatever I can. I mean, I wouldn't either describe myself, I should say, as a permaculture guru or anything either. There are a lot of people really knowledgeable. It's such a diverse area, and you can specialise in all sorts. So, but just to come and teach people the basics, teach people the ethics and the principles and how they can apply it wherever, really, in their own gardens, their allotments, or to literally find space. We want a permanent home because where we meet is run by another group who have been very supportive. But I've got literally a library I want to set up that I want people to be able to come and access whenever. I've got a seed bank that we started. So, we just want, which is why I started speaking to the council, because, I looked a little bit into the Localism Act and all that stuff that's come out fairly recently, and neighbourhood plans as well, which the councils aren't really talking about, but, that's what's going on at the minute. They've all got to list their assets. They say they're their assets. They're not really, are they? They're our assets. But but that's what they're doing. As far as I've seen, is listing everything they can sell, and then there's this sort of cut-off point where anyone can write neighbourhood plans. Anyone can find out who's doing it, and I don't think the council are. They're not encouraging it. And then earmark what you think should be done with certain spaces. And you could put things on the asset register and lock them up, because otherwise they're just going to sell them off eventually to whatever go, probably.
Yeah. So what exactly are the main objectives of your group?
Well, basically, as I said, we just want to sort of explore aspects of permaculture, including ways of gardening, to help create a sustainable, happy, inclusive community. We hold sort of regular meetings. Sometimes we're working on the patch. Sometimes we just sit in the office chatting, eating cake, putting the world to rights. And we've done some workshops. We did a willow weaving workshop. We've had some talks. We had the lovely, I don't know if you've heard of Bridget Strawbridge. She's really into bees and bee conservation and what's happening to the bee population. She'd be a really great guest, actually. Let's see if she...
Oh yeah, you'll have to put me in touch with her. So you've already covered how regular your group meets. How could people
Yeah.
with an sorry?
Sorry, go on. No, I
No,
interrupted
carry on. What were you going to say there?
you. I can't remember. It's gone now, Dawn.
So people, if they don't have like in their area a permaculture group, how would they go about setting one up?
Well, it's worth having a mooch in the first instance, because that's another reason I set our group up, because in some areas there's massive permaculture networks. London, the Permaculture Association, they've got a great website. I think I've given you that link, haven't I? That'll be on online. They have listings from groups all over the country and the world. I mean, it's worldwide. It originated in Australia, so if you start mooching, there's a lot of little groups, that's what I found. And, there is a network there to be joined up. I know some people have issues with Facebook, which is understandable, but it's great for finding out sort of little groups here, there, that are doing stuff.
You actually have a Facebook group, don't you?
Yeah, we have a Facebook group, mainly for just, resources, basically. Any kind of interesting links I come across, or just to chat to people that can't make it to the meetings, and fill them in on what we're doing on our patch and that sort of stuff, So, yeah, if you want to start a group, it's just asking around, I suppose. Where we meet is a community market garden run by a charity called Ideal for All, who are a great charity, actually. They're run by and for disabled people. They do all sorts of work, but gardening being one of them, and they have various groups come down and they do holistic therapy and teach people to garden, and they do a veg bag scheme as well in the summer. And there was a kids club, which was the other reason I started going there with the kids. So I did have links there already, and so the one day I just sort of said to Tim, could we sort of hold meetings down here? And they've been so
it's really
supportive.
it's really just taking your own initiative basically and trying to see where's available and making the connections so that you can then take it further from there.
Definitely is, yeah. And as soon as it's like, like a rolling stone, you start talking to a couple of people, then they know a couple of people, and, there is that sense of community still there. It is, but you have got to go out and look for it a little bit, and just chat to people. And, with these sort of ideas of growing food now, from where I start, people keep asking me who I'm working for, not in a suspicious way, I should be obviously employed by some group to do this stuff, and I'm not. I'm just doing it.
You're just doing it because you realise how well. Yeah. Because it's quite important, really, isn't it? It's really. If you want to be self-sustaining, if you want to try and get off the grid, it's good to know this stuff. It's vital, really.
Well, the ethics of permaculture are firstly earth care, which obviously is sort of looking after the planet, because aside from the fact of us, getting our food from it, if the planet's dead, then we can't live on it anyway, can we? So we better start looking after it,
Fine, yeah.
And then there's people care, which they're self-explanatory, really. It's just sort of, looking after people and helping people reach their full potential, and ensuring everyone's well-being. And then the third one is fair shares, which is really sort of concerned with not being a consumer and not, taking more than you need.
I seen something in a documentary earlier on about the permaculture where they were talking about like growing upwards. You can save a lot of space by growing things upwards, like sometimes like hedgerows, instead of just being like a division
That's one of
of land. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the
Can
sort of
grow all sorts of things.
Yeah, oh, you can. I mean, ideally in the permaculture system anyway, you would only use as much area of land as you need. You know, you would keep it as small as possible and then have the rest of your space over to sort of a wild area, as it were, for diversity and to ensure the natural cycles of the planet, you know.
So I've kind of partially answered my next question then, which was, if you don't have a lot of space, how can you grow your own food? What kind of options are there out there? Really?
Well, I mean, permaculture is all about the design, really. It's the design process that is the most important thing. And you design according to your locality. So, you know, design processes will be different wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in whatever country. So what you would the observation is the first one, basically. So, I mean, even if it was just, I don't know, a windowsill, you would look at the size of it, obviously, how much height you've got to play with, what direction your windowsill is facing, because that would denote what kind of things you could grow, what sort of things you actually like to eat, because it's amazing, people that like grow rows of turnips and hate turnips, you know. So there you would, and then, you know, look at other things like how much time you actually want to spend tending whatever you're growing, and then you begin to kind of build up a picture there of what sort of thing you can put in place. I mean, what's available to you is the other thing as well, because we sort of try and get everything free, really, as much as possible. Yeah, use what you've got. Yeah.
Recycling.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big one. That's a really big one. I mean, composting is your
composting, yeah.
Obviously your big obvious one. I mean, within permaculture, you would try and match inputs to outputs. So the output of one thing, so I don't say vegetable peelings would be the input to another, like your compost, or you've got, I don't know, chicken manure, and then, you know, nutrients for your garden. So, you know, you try and link it all together. There is a set of sort of 12 principles. I mean, they're not like, you know, the 10 Commandments or anything. You would find that a lot of groups would kind of brainstorm these when they get together and talk about what they really mean and how they can be applied. But observing and interacting is the first main thing. Sort of really, if you'd got a garden and you wanted to permaculture it, ideally you would observe it for a year, and you would look at various things like where the sun falls throughout the year, where frost pockets are, where you got, which is like microclimates, so which little places particularly stay cold, which ones get quite warm. You would also look at what plants are already growing there. Certain plants are what they call indicator plants, so they would give you an idea of what sort of soil you've got, and then you can kind of build up a picture then of what will grow. It's basically how much you can grow for the least amount of work, and if you judge your soil right and your area right, then theoretically you can create a fairly low maintenance garden. Perennial plants are quite a big thing in permaculture, because obviously you put them in and that's it, pretty much. And they come
that's
up.
Great. That's kind of like what a lot of people that have got a busy lifestyle would want, the least maintenance kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly. So see, if you're starting with your plan and then you factor in, well, you know, I've only got 2 hours a week and there's just me, so realistically I can achieve this and this, you know. So ideally you've planned so you've got all your contingencies in place before you actually implement it, and then obviously you don't have to change anything because it should all flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So is there any plants that you would avoid growing? And if so, which and why?
It depends. Is the stock permaculture answer. I mean, I wouldn't. I do tend to use sort of heritage seeds as much as possible these days, because for various reasons. Obviously, you've got issues with pesticides and things like that because a lot of commercial seeds are soaked in pesticides these days, which can cause problems in the sort of wider network of nature and affect insects and things like that. F1 seeds aren't viable, so you can't collect those seeds and grow them on because they won't grow properly. Oh God, I lost my train of thought then. And also, it's come back to me. Also, theoretically, it's illegal because if you look on commercial seeds, they're produced under license, so you don't own them. So theoretically, collecting a seed is illegal. Anyway.
Right, that's an interesting point you've brought.
Yeah. So that's why I've started the seed bank. We've got a free seed bank that anyone can access. And I really want to encourage people to sort of obviously take them, but collect them as well and put back into the seed bank. I mean, we haven't totally got heritage seeds in there at the moment, purely because a lot of people that I'm sort of connecting with about this aren't really into permaculture. So, you know, I want to try and get people involved before I start haranguing them about the sovereignty of seeds and, you know. Yeah. So, F1s don't go too true to type generally. Yeah, they might grow, someone's saying on the feed here. They will grow, but they don't necessarily grow true to type, so they're not very reliable, which is, why heritage seeds are better. And also, if you can get seeds that were grown in your locality, I'm quite lucky because I'm not far from Coventry, and Garden Organic, Wrighton Gardens, I don't know if anyone's heard of that. It is fairly well known. They've got a big heritage seed bank there, so I'm quite keen to support them and access their seeds.
Yeah, keeping it organic is really it's much more healthy way of doing things.
Yeah,
having all this GMO poison.
Oh, I know, it's a bit. Well, I mean, that's a whole, because when you look at what's happening to farmers, you know, like big proper agricultural farmers, it's absolutely horrific. I mean, all your main crops now are pretty much genetically modified: maize, wheat, soy, cotton, and I mean, the farmers, their backs are against the wall because now they're stuck in situations with Monsanto and companies such that
traded Monsanto.
Yeah, well, their soil's dead now.
They're not being banned in France, Monsanto. France are trying to.
Yeah, there have been various things going on. There was something going on in Russia as well, where they were trying to ban it. But see, I don't know whether some of that's political. I don't want to get into that because I nearly got into an argument about that before. Because that's a whole other conversation.
I think it's more about looking at the facts rather than just theorising. If you've got the facts there, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, I watched a great film called Raising Resistance, which was all about farmers in Brazil. So basically, they're locked into this thing now where their soil's dead. So every year they have to buy the seed from these companies. They can't collect that seed at the end of the season, and they wouldn't be able to anyway because it's illegal. And they have to buy fertilizer and pesticides to get their crops. But then the farmers surrounding these the the small farmers that are still left growing their own food, it's polluting the watercourse, and they can't grow their own food anymore. And so it's having the knock-on effect of all these kind of social problems, and it's just totally unsustainable.
Talking about that documentary I seen earlier on, they were also talking about like the land and how they were trying to. They had like one farm was it like a meat farm, basically had all these cows, and I can't remember the name of the guy actually, but he developed a system where he grew different kinds of grass.
Yeah.
And it meant that the cows could stay out all year round. They didn't have to go indoors. They were able to graze on the grass because there was all these different kinds of grass, and it worked really well.
It's sort of giving them a more natural environment. I was just reading an article about that earlier, about a lady with her cows, and she was letting them roam free more, giving them a lot more natural food, and finding that they were really happy. They'd graze, they could graze around trees and they wouldn't damage the trees. The whole field was doing really well because of the manure, and the deers wouldn't come in and graze there because the cows grazed there. It's looking at these natural systems that are already there and kind of reinforcing those.
How like the land, whenever like there was long grass or a place looked quite a mess, something, it was actually quite a good thing for nature because it was very natural and everything was thriving. There was lots of insects and lots of life about the place.
Yeah. Well, you do when you go through the design process, you do actually zone. So you create zones, and the last zone would be the wild zone, basically. Where everything is as it should. I mean, it's funny, because you look to some areas. I mean, I'm in kind of just outside of Birmingham. It's a deprived area, so there's a lot of what you'd call scrub type land, but it's not really natural. I mean, it's like what happened at my allotment when I took it on. The council went in, took off the top few inches, which is the most fertile layer, and then what you get growing back after that is couch grass and bramble. But it's like the earth trying to repair itself, basically, because it's been compressed, and like I say, the fertile bit's been taken off.
And it's so vital to give it that time to heal, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I couldn't really do anything with it then, for a while, and then I got a letter from the council saying, why aren't you working on it? Well, you've squashed it down, and now it's covered in brambles, that's why.
There ain't nothing I can do about it. Yeah.
So, that's another thing you would sort of do when you're looking at what sort of design you're putting in place. If you're doing it outside, is you would take a soil sample and identify what kind of soil you've got, and again, then you get an idea of what kind of plants will grow there and what ones it's not worth trying, I mean, there's all these kind of plants these days that need a certain type of soil, but why bother going to all that effort to kind of create a different kind of soil than you've already got? I mean, there are methods of improving it. If you're very heavy clay, then there's ways that you can add sort of humus and things to kind of improve the area. Another thing that a lot of permaculturists practice is no dig. They don't dig the soil. Well, they may dig it when they first come to an area. It depends what it's like in the first place. But because there's a whole sort of ecosystem under the ground, you get mycorrhizal fungi, which links up plant roots, and there's sort of microbes and things under the ground that draw up trace nutrients from lower down in the soil that the plants themselves wouldn't be able to access. And when you keep digging, you're letting too much light and you're letting too much water, and that kills all that stuff off. and then so you've lost your base.
Right, so it's kind of undoing all the hard work you've done in the first place.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you have to be very careful with these things.
Yeah, so I haven't dug my garden for years, and we are having to dig a little bit on the allotment because, as I say, it was so compressed and it's just covered in couch and bramble now, so we're having to do it a little bit, but I won't after the initial dig over, and we'll use things like mulch. There's various, I mean, that's a whole subject in itself, and you can go mooch around online at various theories of what you can use for mulch, things like wood chip. I mean, some people use all sorts. Some people will literally just cut comfrey straight onto the top of the soil around plants as a mulch, or you could use green manure, which are things like ryegrass, which would tend to fix nitrogen into the soil, which you would then grow for a season and then cut and just leave for the nutrients to go back into the soil.
That's some good information you're sharing there.
Thank you.
And we'll also, obviously, as I said before, we're going to have all these links that Nyrees has been mentioning. We've got a whole host of links that we'll put with the video tomorrow. There is a question from the chat.
Yeah.
Is it possible to grow all your food for a year? Is it even possible, or would you still have to buy in some food to keep your nutrition levels up?
Well, it depends on your starting point, really. I mean, you could get to a position where you were providing yourself with a lot of your own food. I wouldn't say you would be able to provide all your food by yourself, but what I would say is, make the links, because, the community allotment I go up to, as I said, they do a veg bag scheme. So we get vegetables from them, and then it's just the people you meet, isn't it? Because if you're linking with other people that are gardening, then I'll often catch up with someone and they'll be like, I've got millions of tomatoes. A massive bag.
So can I barter for your tomatoes?
Yeah.
I'll give you this.
Well,
I'll give you my potatoes.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot more of that going on, and so it should be as well.
Go back to basics.
Yeah,
really appeals to me, that whole...
Well, that's the thing. That's why I sort of said at the beginning about I don't know whether I'm classed as an activist as such, because I don't think it's not worth fighting that system, and it's not worth Well, this is my own personal opinion. I don't want to belittle what anyone else might be doing, but I there's no point. But they're not going to change their system. Or well, they can't or they won't. Probably a bit of both. So we should just be getting on with it and making new systems. So
it's all about taking steps to get away from that system as much as possible, so you're not as reliant. Obviously there's some things that make it difficult to totally move away from the system, but the more that you can do to lessen your reliability on the debt slave system, where basically it's just like having a monkey on your back all the time. I also have been looking into there's these tiny houses as well. They're great. And that makes you mortgage free. And you can have a little piece of land with your allotment or grow your own food.
Yeah. Oh,
so there's all sorts of ways that you can do it, that you can become more self-sustaining and less reliant on the corporate system.
Yeah, I mean, but basically, you kind of looking at, aren't you? But you want to look at you supplying your own food, supplying your own water, shelter, and energy. They're your kind of 4 basics, I would say. And there's links within permaculture to address all of those things. I mean, there's the whole sort of building shelters. There's obviously earthships and all kinds of cob building. Various techniques, and that's really what I want to get involved in is, building these things and having them as skill sharing events. So they're not even workshops as such, because everyone's kind of learning together. And then once everyone's come and learned, you've actually built a building, and then you've got 20 or so people that can go off and do it again somewhere else, and then, so it spreads out. And the same with energy, because there's a lot of, people building little solar panels or, looking into ways of providing their own energy as well. And they're just such massive subjects. I think I gave you the link to the Low Impact Living Initiative, which is a fantastic site. And it's got so many resources on there and links. There's a forum as well. So that one's really worth checking out if people want to look on.
When we spoke the other day, you were talking about you were going to maybe do training courses or something.
Yeah, well, we're looking into all kinds of stuff at the minute. I mean, it's all quite organic the way it's happening. So kind of there's sort of various things that we want to do, and it kind of just depends on who we meet and, what becomes available to us. But I am doing a little permaculture for beginners course in a few weeks. People seem quite into that one. But I would like to work with, sort of groups of people as well. I've been chatting to various people about working with, I don't know, sort of recovering addicts and various groups like that. So, and also in the schools, I'm going to go and start helping out at my kids' school with their garden and kind of teaching them a bit of this stuff too. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, just spreading on the knowledge, really, and then it's not just the food, water, shelter, and energy. It's the needs of the soul, isn't it? Kind of the energy we all give off as people, because some places you go, you can really feel that negative energy, can't you? That real heavy. I don't want to. There are specific places I could mention from around here, but I don't want to in case anyone that's it'd be really awful.
You don't want to tell the world.
But and so the needs of the soul, a kind of community, and the ability for people to be creative, and it's so important because I think that's linked to health, obviously, as well, and people's well-being. So there's that whole side of it as well, which I can't tell you how many people I've met in this last year. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and there's a lot of good energy going about at the minute everywhere. So it seems it's all quite exciting. So I'm now at the point where I'm sort of working on about 3 different projects and talking to various people about various things, and running around all over the place, but I'm really enjoying it.
That's excellent. About these courses, if you do decide to go ahead with them, would you be able to provide us links or information so that we can get it out to the people?
Definitely.
And we would then obviously put it on our Facebook page or in the group. If you just search Darkcity Radio.
Yeah, definitely.
And her website, Nyrees' website, is SAB permaculturegroup.weebly.com, but that again will be put on the YouTube video and the links, and we'll have it tweeted everywhere and on our Facebook page and our group, so it'll be pretty easy for you to find all these links. So I'll just post them everywhere.
Excellent.
Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Well, I suppose I could just talk briefly about, as I was saying, we just touched on there about the fact that kind of our big sort of staples that we've all been used to, your rice and corn and soy, they're just unsustainable, and do we really want to eat them anyway with how they're produced? So I'm really interested in looking at alternative sort of resources, for the kind of staple things that we need. And nettles is the thing I've become a bit obsessed with. we're having a nettle fest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So tell us a
I
bit more
can't
about
believe
that
they've
then.
agreed to it. Although they're calling it a local food event.
I
Right,
just think,
the nettle.
ouch.
Well, yeah, yeah. So a lot of people think that it's kind of a little hook on nettles. So it's a physical thing. So once you cook it, it does break down. So you don't have to worry about getting stung. But it's got literally so many uses. There's the food uses, which most people know about, but it's massively high in nutrients. It's really good for you. And therefore it's also good as a plant food, that kind of thing. Um, it makes a really good sag paneer, so I've been told. I haven't tried that one yet, but it's a good spinach substitute.
Excellent. Yeah.
And the seeds are edible. They supposedly you can use them as a substitute for salt. I haven't tried that one yet, because obviously salt's another thing that could be here today, available, gone tomorrow. In my mind, anyway. You can use it as a dye. The green part produces sort of a grey-green type dye, and the root produces a yellow dye. And it can also be used to make fabric and paper. So that's
very versatile.
I'm really interested in, because I did do fashion design many years ago when I left school. So I'd really loved it. I met a lovely. See, it's all about the connections. I met a lovely lady who's really knowledgeable in this area. She's got a fantastic allotment. If anyone from our area is listening, they've got an allotment on the Walsall Road in Perry Bar, just by the Alexandra Stadium. They do open to the public on a Sunday. Their place is well worth going to visit. It's a massive allotment, lovely people. She's got just a great big allotment filled with plants for dye and paper, and she's got a little business selling natural fibres. So she's going to teach me how to spin it. And it's supposed to be quite hardy. Apparently, the German army made their uniforms from nettles during the Second World War. It's supposed to be a bit hemp-like, quite a durable type fabric. So, yeah.
You use it for your tie-dye t-shirts as well, then?
Exactly, yeah. It's got a multitude of uses, and the thing is, you don't have, it's already growing, isn't it? You don't have to clear an area and then sow and wait for your harvest. It's pretty much
already there.
And it is actually an indicator plant, because if it is growing, it can be in an area that you've got. It can be a sign that your soil's actually quite high in nutrients. Yeah, it's an amazing plant. It's the plant of the future.
I remember when I was younger, I used to go picking berries, blackberries, and making jam.
Yeah.
Don't actually, where I live, we don't actually see so many of these nowadays.
Yeah, well, we're quite lucky then, actually, because we have a lot of blackberry around here. So I've just let that grow in the garden, because that's another amazing plant. That's the symbol for the permaculture group, actually, because it's another plant I admire. The resilience of bramble, well, blackberry in particular, obviously, because you get a fruit off it. It's just phenomenal. There's just no stopping it, is there? Yet it'll grow massive. And, I watch mine in the garden, because we've got quite a few birds. We've got some robins and some wagtail tits and sparrows. Watch them fly into the middle, so they're protected then, because there's literally millions of cats around here.
It's like another benefit. You get whole, nature.
Exactly.
All these animals and birds flying in.
Exactly. And I mean, with bramble, I don't know if you noticed yourself, Dawn, I've seen mine, and it'll be covered in aphids, literally covered in them. I'll see it, and it'll have rust all up some of it. And then it still fruits. It still gives off loads of fruit, nothing sort of holds it back, really. I mean, even last year, obviously, it was one of the most horrific seasons on record, growing-wise. Even things that are really hardy just were, it was a nightmare. Anyway, no, I want to forget about that. But blackberry fruited amazingly. I made some blackberry oxymol, which is just literally like a natural like lemsip, but obviously the blackcurrant version. And people couldn't get enough of it. I made it, and then people were coming back for more. You just sort of put a little bit in the cup, top it up with hot water for colds and flu or whatever, and it's lovely as a salad dressing because it's made with vinegar, blackberry and vinegar. That's what you make it with. On salad, it's really nice. That's what we did when we cleared the patch at Salad Drive. We looked at the indicator plants, which sort of help you build your soil profile, but we also looked at them and to see what uses they've got, because things that just grow naturally, dandelion is another one. You can eat the leaves of that, the sort of the young leaves. And I also make a syrup out of the flower heads, which it makes you do add sugar to it, but it's like a honey, almost like a honey, really, really delicate flavour. And then obviously you don't annoy other allotment holders because you're picking the heads off before they all go to seed and fly. And that's the difficulty if you're practicing permaculture on allotment sites. Sometimes people don't necessarily have the understanding of what you're doing or what you're trying to achieve. And I do know of people that have been chucked off allotment sites because people think they've just got a big mess on there and not really understanding the systems that people are trying to put in place. So there is that element to it, but I'm quite lucky on mine because it's a really run-down allotment site. That's another opportunity that I'm kind of trying to get involved in because there's nothing there, so we're trying to get that off the council currently. Well, they've agreed to it in principle. We went in for a meeting the other day, but they're trying to make us sign this massive lease agreement. Fortunately, I'm working with a couple of other people who are very knowledgeable in these things, and lawyers have looked at it and they're trying to sneak in all these contingencies. So it's ongoing at the minute, but if that comes off, because there's nothing there, there's no toilets, nothing there. So we really want to build a community hub. I mean, if that comes off, we'll have a proper base for the permaculture group and we'll really be able to, have some really good stuff going down there. But yeah, I went into the meeting with the council on that one. And I mean, this is, I know a lot of people know this is the mentality you're working with. There was a lady and she actually works in parks and gardens because we haven't got an allotment department anymore. It all comes under parks and gardens. And at the beginning of the meeting, I sort of said, asked them if they'd heard of permaculture, and they're like, no. And then literally about 15 minutes later, when I was mentioning a couple of ideas that I'd like to see on site, she said to me, but you can't permaculture a whole allotment. She just literally just told me that she didn't know what it was. Ridiculous. Oh, yeah, eco-toilets do make good fertiliser. Someone's just put that on the thing. I went to a talk the other day by a lovely guy, Martin Doyle. He's on Facebook, the Little Toilet Company. He actually sells compost toilets, but he did a really great talk, not just trying to push his products through the various compost toilets you can use, and it does make amazing fertiliser. Yeah, it's supposed to be really good for the plants. That's what I want to get
all round, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah.
One of these plants are good for your health, and then obviously having the option to grow your own food organically, and to a degree, obviously. And then back to base with the bartering and whatnot. So yeah, what's not to like about it, really?
It is massive growing craft kind of collective in Birmingham and the surrounding areas, of people just making their own stuff, bringing out their creativity and linking together and creating networks in that respect. I've been kind of chatting to people around this area about pop-up shops and things like that, really. The high streets is another issue, isn't it? Sort of how they're dwindling and, getting shops selling local products that people have made and really trying to create a proper local economy.
There is quite a demand for that, to go back to that.
Yeah.
That way, I mean, we're moving away from these big corporate supermarkets that have all the GMO produce, unhealthy junk foods, and try and move to a healthier lifestyle, away from the chemicals, away from processed food.
There's a massive Morrison's opened up just outside the Birmingham city centre. And, you know, I don't know, people have probably seen stuff on documentaries and that before, that they actually, before they open, they actually steam their fruit and vegetables, supermarkets, to make them look all shiny and disguise that they're like not real vegetables, you know. They've got a lot
foods.
Yeah. But this Morrison's, right, they've actually installed them as a feature. So they've got
quite disturbing, isn't it, really?
Well, it is, because everyone's standing around and going, ooh, look, there's all this sort of, you know, misted water coming out. And I mean, you know, it does look, you know, I can see it from a kid's point of view, it does look pretty like, ooh, check that out. But,
these,
you know,
antibiotic-infested foods.
Yeah. I suppose it is proper distraction. In fact, it's a bit of a mind fuck, because they're distracting you by the very thing that's actually, oh no, yeah. So, shocking.
I won't go into it, but I just when you said mindfuck there, it just brought back memories of a conversation last night. So Dama wants to know, does veganics apply in permaculture?
Does what? Sorry, I didn't catch this. Does what?
Veganics?
I'm not sure what that is, to be honest.
I can't pronounce it.
Can she expand on...
So, Dama, come and tell us what veganics is then.
No, it's veganics. It's like, it's using vegetable matter as totally, I think, and nothing organic. Because not all organic things are vegan, are they? Because some of it's blood, fish and bone things.
Definitely. That's interesting, actually, because the talk I went to on compost toilets was actually at the Vegetarian and Vegan Society meeting. And, you know, when you start looking into these things, I mean, even with compost toileting, so if you're composting it and people that are eating meat are using it, then that means that, you know, there's a whole ethical thing there as well. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I have to say, I do use blood, fish and bone occasionally for sort of things like fruit bushes. I've just transplanted a load up to the allotment, so, you know, I obviously wanted them to take, so I did use a little bit there. But when you're making your own design, so if that was what you wanted to factor in, then yeah, I mean, you can do it all with just purely stuff based from vegetable matter. Definitely.
Naomi, I'd like to say thank you very much for having you on the show tonight.
No
It's
problem.
been wonderful. You've been full of information, really interesting, fascinating information, and very useful information. And I'm sure a lot of us have learned heaps from what you've told us tonight, and will learn more by the links as well, in our further research into the topic yet. So, once again, thanks very much.
No problem.
You're welcome to stay on for the next hour if you wish. It's going to be the crew.
Yeah, I'll stay on for a bit.
Fantastic. So it's just going to be a big ad-lib discussion, basically.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I'm chuffed. I've got that bit out of the way now. I was a bit worried I was going to come on and just go, bleh. So, yeah.
You're absolutely great.
Cool.
Okay, I think the server is just about to come in.
You're listening. You're listening to Darkcity Radio Live. This is your host Dawn from the Darkcity crew. Tune in at www.darkcityradio.com. You can find us by searching Darkcity Radio on Facebook or Twitter. You're listening to Darkcity Radio Live. To Darkcity Radio Live.